amidst the chaos. I know that's what I want. Well, I don't really want chaos in the first place. And yet we know that moving is one of the top stressors in a person's life. I mean, isn't it awesome being in an industry, Linda, where we create? Well, we don't create it, do we? We don't create the stress. We create the peace amidst the storm. Does that sound better?
That's our hope.
That's our, well, that's our hope. That's our goal. And in fact, that's our focus, right? So I'm Yetta Dekker.
I'm Linda Fusi.
And we're part of the Dekker team. And we thought it would be really helpful just to go through what it's like for a buyer to go through the journey of buying a home, whether it's your first home, your second home, your 10th home. It really doesn't matter. There's still a journey and a process. And I know for me, Linda, as I've talked to so many buyers over the years, and maybe you're one of those buyers I've talked to over the years, and you've said, I went through my first experience and even my second sometimes, not really understanding what I was doing, not having calm in the midst of really a storm, because buying a home is a bit of a storm. And we know that that's not fair. We know from talking to so many buyers that you want an easy process. You want a comfortable journey. You want a journey that you have confidence in, that when it's all done, you've got the right house for the right price and the right location, and that it's going to serve you for the long term. Is that about right?
I think so. I think everybody has a goal in mind, and as part of the Dekker team, we help to fulfill that goal in a way that's comfortable for each individual. Every individual has their own story, and I think our strength is that we take the time with every individual to find out what that story is and how we can facilitate whatever goal that they're moving towards.
Yeah. So if you're just joining us, or if you've already been tuned in, I haven't told you that you're listening to the Inside Track on Real Estate with the Dekker team. And I want to thank you because you actually make us have the ability to share better insights with you, because you give us feedback and because you journey with us and you allow us to journey with you, and together we move forward. So thank you for that, because you are the difference maker, not only in your own story, which is, of course, what you're supposed to be, you're also the difference maker in other people's stories. Because as you share what worked for you and what didn't work for you, in fact, it allows us to tailor even better the journey for the next time you experience the buying and selling process, and for the others that you would introduce to us. They also then get the advantage of your experience. I mean, they say there's not enough years on the earth to learn all the mistakes yourself. So we might as well learn from each other.
And I like how you say the next time. We do have a lot of repeat clients, and actually if they're not clients, who become family members of our team. And the relationships that we form over the years, over the times that we spent together, are pretty strong, pretty intense, just because you go through such a period of transition. The situations that you are in can be very intense, and it forms
I think that's an understatement. Yeah. I laugh. If you couldn't see me because you're listening instead of watching, you'll see that I kind of did one of these shaking, laughing sort of things. And that's because it is intense.
And it's great to go through those, through that whole process and come out of it with a strong bond in the end. And our team, the way we continue that bond too, beyond the specific transaction, is through our family celebrations, which are wonderful.
Well, they are fun. And probably the best part of that is watching our family, really. It's a big family. Ken always said, which is the other half of me, not the other half of the team, but certainly part of the Dekker team. Ken Dekker is my husband and business partner for way too many years, like almost 3 decades. Yeah, that's like a long time.
Many more to come.
Many more to come. And what he's always said, and we only had 2 children, and most of you have met them, Candace and Ryan. I was going to say Candace Dekker and Ryan Dekker, but that's not even actually true anymore. It's Candace St. Louis. And sometimes she'll go by Candace Dekker St. Louis because people don't recognize there's our kid. And she's actually proud to be our kid. Now, how amazing is that? And this is the girl that said growing up, there's one career I will never have. There's just one I will never, ever, ever have. And you all know what it is, right? Because every time Candace says she will never, ever, ever something, and maybe you've done that too. You've said, I will never, ever own an investment property, or well, I will never, ever buy my first home, because we've helped clients in their 60s buy their first home, right? And those people have often said, I will never, ever, and yet they did. And just because sometimes we convince ourselves that we will never, ever, that doesn't mean that it's not the very best thing for us to do, which is exactly what Candace discovered when she would say, I will pump gas before I will help and move into the real estate industry. And yet the amazing thing, just like Linda, Candace and Linda have this amazing heart of service, this amazing ability to actually hear you, to hear what's going on for you, to get into the story of your life so that they can collaborate and come alongside to actually keep that long-term view in the midst of potentially short-term pain. You've heard me say pain and chaos, and Linda's used the word intense. And you should think as realtors, we're just selling the upside of the whole gig. And yet that's not truth. The truth is it is a big deal to buy a home, right? Because often when you're buying a home, you're also selling a home. So we actually have expertise there as well. And today we're going to mostly focus on, and yet you can't totally ignore that the two often come together, is making an actual move to move into a new home is our focus today. Whether you move in, whether it's a home that you're going to move into, or whether it's an investment property, or whether in fact it's a property where it's going to be, you're going to live there, but you're also going to rent out some of the space, because what an amazing strategy that is, right? So keeping a long-term view and really helping you put it all together. So Linda, when I say put it all together, how would you sort of describe that? For somebody that doesn't know what I mean by putting it all together, how would you describe that?
Well, the first thing when you are thinking of purchasing a home is assembling a great team. So in terms of looking for, after you've contacted the Dekker team, we also
so see that? There you go. That's your first step. Linda's just giving it to you. Connect with us first. And actually, sometimes people will say, is it too early?
Never too early. There's always a period of exploration. You don't necessarily have to be buying a home within the next 3 months when you contact us. If you're just gathering information, we're more than happy to spend that time with you just to answer any questions that you may have. And, down the road, we've had people who've waited for a year or two, and that's fine. Or even if you just have questions and would like to inquire about the process, we're more than happy to spend the time doing that. So never too early.
No, it really is never too early, because sometimes what I've seen happen, and I don't know if you've seen this too, Linda, what I've seen, and maybe you've actually even experienced it, you think you're not going to buy a home right now. So you don't do your due diligence. You don't find somebody that you can work with and that can work with you to make sure that as you navigate the home buying process, you actually go through it with your eyes wide open, not rose-colored glasses, not surprised by things that will, I'm going to say, bite you in the bum later. Really go through the process informed and knowledgeable and really feeling good for the long haul. Not just in the short term, right? And knowing what you've done. And so often I've been told that people have not anticipated they're going to buy a house now. And then all of a sudden they bought a house and they didn't know what happened to them.
Yeah, preparation is key for sure. Due diligence and preparation. So the more information you have, the more prepared and knowledgeable you are about the process. It's in your best interest. So we'd like to help with that.
Right. And one of the ways we've done that is by answering questions. So Linda just said, we'll answer your questions well in advance and really create for you a strategy.
We also have the workshops that you're more than welcome to join us at.
Right. And the workshops give you amazing insights as well. Right now, the main workshop that we're doing is actually an investor workshop. Ever so often. So our next one coming up is actually September 21st. And so it's actually being hosted by Ryan Dekker. And he is, although it's focused on investors, every strategy that you use as an investor is exactly really the same strategies you're using when you're going to live in the home. Mm-hmm. I mean, you hear a lot of stuff out there about your home is your biggest investment, your biggest asset. And yes, it is a roof over your head. You need a place for your family. And then there's an argument on the other side that, well, your home isn't an asset, it's a liability because it costs you money and you have to maintain it. So there's a lot of discrepancy out there. And what I might say to that is, it depends on your vantage point. It depends on your perspective, because if I'm paying somebody else's mortgage because I'm a tenant, well, that's a pretty costly liability too. I don't have the liability in my house, but I certainly have the liability of an expense that I get no return on, other than a roof over my head. So by investing it into something that I actually get to own right now, with the interest rates still good, I know they've gone up a little bit and they're still incredibly low, like crazy low for the 33 years, 34 years that I've been buying real estate myself. 15% at one point was considered really good because they just come from 21, 22, right? So now with being like where we are, it's crazy, no matter what they go up to almost in the short term. So keeping a long-term view and putting it all together. So you start by putting it together for them with a what?
With a buyer consultation is the first thing, is just taking the time to sit and listen. We can do that either at our office, we can do it at your home, we can do it at the workplace. I've done it at a coffee shop. So wherever is most convenient and comfortable for you to share your story, that's where we begin.
Right. And often even before that face-to-face consultation, there's been a phone consultation, right? And on the phone conversation with you, really just getting, what are the main things you're wanting to learn in that first phone conversation before you even meet?
The first things are where they're at, what point of transition they're in, what their goals are, what they hope to achieve with our relationship, and the timeline.
All right. So really the first piece is just, where are you at in the journey? When do you anticipate you think you want to make a move, whether it's selling the home you're currently in and then buying another one, because that's an entirely different strategy and yet a vital one, or whether you're currently renting. So really the first piece is simply understanding where you are. And sometimes just by having that conversation with Linda or with Candace or with myself or Ryan or Ken, one of our realtors, what will happen is you'll get clarity you didn't have before, just by being asked the question. And then to discover, slowly start to discover where you want to be, why you want to be there, why do you even want to make this move? That conversation begins on the phone and then continues in a little more depth when we're face to face with you. And face to face is, obviously you can see expression. That's why I actually encourage people to tune into the Inside Track on Real Estate on our YouTube channel, or on CHRI.ca. There's podcast as well as video there. And then you get a little fuller an experience than you get when you just listen to voice. Although I'm told that when you just listen to the voice, you catch nuances you can't catch that get lost when you're watching. So maybe, Anyway, so getting a discovery of, for you, to sort of know what is important to you. Where are you at? And where do you want to go?
And what other professionals that you need on your team.
Right. So that's really something we cover a fair bit in the face-to-face, right? Who else needs to be on that team with you? Because it's not a solo activity, or at least it's not a solo activity if you're going to do it with excellence.
Right. So your lender, your mortgage broker, and the More Than Enough team are a fantastic group to work with. We have referrals for lenders, also for your lawyer, because they're you need someone to protect your best interest, because it is a legally binding contract. There's a lot of legalese in the contract too, that you want to make sure that you're covered, your bases are covered.
Yeah, and the neat thing around the legalese, and we're sort of jumping to a later part, except I think it's also important to know that right from the beginning, we understand contract law, right? I mean, we take our courses, and of course with Linda has about 8 years experience. I have about 28 years experience. Everybody on the team has 6+ years experience. And so everybody has understanding of what should be in that contract. How do we protect you as a buyer? How do we write the clauses? So that when your lawyer gets it, it really is, they're protecting you not so much from the way the contract is written, because we use standardized forms as well. So we're just adding the portion that is pertinent to you and specific to you. And then they're going to be looking at title search and making sure that the title of the property, because there's things that we can't possibly know until the legal process is also accomplished, as well as the adjustments and things. So the lawyer is there to protect your back, as well as are we there to protect your back. And part of the way of doing that is just by asking those questions and worrying about the details and understanding the contract law. So the detail starts at the beginning and goes right through the entire process, so that you know what you're doing and you've got the right answers. And if we don't know the right answers, because we don't have them all, do we?
We're always learning.
Always, right? Like always learning. And I suspect in your career, even if you've been at it a really long time, there's still something you learn every day that you didn't know the day before. And sometimes you relearn something you already learned. I seem to be an expert at that one. And yet there's learning every day. So when we don't know the answer, what do?
We always go to the experts outside of our field. Yeah.
Yeah. And then go ahead.
And sometimes within, right?
Sometimes within,
we
absolutely.
consult each other, and yeah.
Yeah. Consulting each other is a huge win-win, and that's really one of the neat things about being on a team versus a solo realtor. Because I used to be a solo realtor a while ago, and I could only rely on me. And yes, other realtors in the industry want to help, and there's something to be said for all being a team player and being there to support your journey collectively and really help you move forward in it with a lot more confidence. Yeah. So getting it right from the beginning, getting the right house. What are some of the other things that are important?
Oh, just the specific search criteria that everybody is looking for. You know, everybody's looking for something a bit different. So we like to find out what exactly is important, what the needs and wants are. And we actually have a system that we can set up that saved criteria, search criteria, and you automatically get the listings that are of interest to you.
Yeah, which is a really neat process because then the ones that don't suit you are eliminated. Right? Like they're just out of your mind. Now, at any point, and this is something a lot of our clients find, is they think they want this, whatever this is, right, Linda? And then as you begin the journey, you discover that maybe that's not quite what you want after all. And so we can broaden the search, we can narrow the search, we can shift the search, we can do several searches if we're looking for, if it's in this area, then it has to have this criteria. And if it's in this area, then I have to have this criteria. It could change, right, in different areas. So we can set up more than one search. And then the other amazing thing that we have access to is so many properties that aren't on the public search systems yet, right? Because we've been helping clients for decades and we have so much knowledge of what's coming, sometimes we can make a perfect match before it ever even hits the public system. Isn't that fun?
It's wonderful when that happens. Yeah.
It is. It is. So how do you ensure, if you're watching or you're listening right, how do you ensure that someone's actually going to put your best interest at heart? How do they ensure that, Linda?
Can you ensure that? Can you ever ensure that? You can trust and do your research and move forward with prayer.
And that is something we do, right? As a team, we pray. And with our clients, those that would like us to, we certainly will pray with you and find that can sometimes bring a real calm and peace to the situation.
I always find that it brings direction. Definitely.
Yeah, which is nice, right? In understanding your expectation. You mentioned that early on, Linda. When somebody's saying, hey, I'm looking for this, but so much beyond the house, they're also looking for something in the realtor.
There has to be effective communication between, the client and the realtor. You may not always see eye to eye because sometimes you're looking as a buyer, you're looking more with an emotional bent, and as a realtor, we are looking more in a more objective way and looking out for your best interests in terms of resale value, in terms of a bit more
the dream, as opposed to just getting caught up in the dream, right? And maybe sometimes, I mean, there are clients, and you've had this experience too, that every home they go into, they hate because they're not going to make a mistake, right? And so then it's really hard to find the right one. And then there's others that go into every house and they're all wonderful. Right? So just to help bring some objectivity. I love that word that Linda said in terms of bringing objectivity to the situation. So looking for the facts. Is there excessive amount of cracks in the foundation? Looking for those material facts, as well as talking about those things about proximity to bus stops and bus noises or railway tracks or, airplanes overhead. All those things. Some of them we know because we're familiar with the city, and other times you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so helping you bring that. I mean, when Linda's saying, you're not going to be quite as objective, you're going to be more subjective because you're looking for your specific interest. And sometimes people will actually say to me, what do you think? And I go, well, about what? Like, let's talk about location. Let's talk about resale value. Let's talk about condition. Let's talk about needs for your family. How is it going to serve your family needs in the short term and the long term? Those I could talk to, and they'll say, no, would you buy this one? And I always laugh. This has become, and I'm not a good joke teller, so this may not even come off. I do not do jokes well. But generally, I will say something like, well, are you inviting me to move in? Because if you're not inviting me to move in, it doesn't really matter whether I love it or I don't, because it isn't for me, right? It's for you. And I think that's what you're saying by objectivity. Because how many of your clients have you moved in with?
Can't say one.
Okay, not even one. So it very much is all about you and your best interest. And just ensuring that you feel a level of trust. Right? And I think a long-term relationship, something that's not just going to be this one sale, helps solidify and maybe give confidence to that your best interest will in fact be maintained and kept at the forefront. Really, it's about treating your money like it's our money, but not attached to it in the same way, because it's not ours. And we don't get to decide where you live. Right?
And we're probably more careful with your budget.
yeah, probably more careful with yours than our own. That's absolutely right. And then there's also the advantage of having access to guides, because we've been at this forever. We have Home Buying Guide, and if you're actually looking, and it actually is home buying and selling, and the reason we put them together, we used to have them separate. And then at one point I realized, wait, you're kind of missing half the story, because even if you're buying now, you may be selling later. And what things would you want to know now when you're buying that would be pertinent when you're selling? Because it's not so much about selling right. It's about buying right. Because when you buy right, you automatically get to sell right.
It's especially important to make that first purchase wisely at the right timing, and because that's when you're going to make the most amount of money actually and save the most, because once you're in the market with you're going to be buying and selling in the same
market,
economic climate, right
unless you're leaving an area, right? If you're staying in the same general area, that's the same. So how you would get a hold of this, I almost forgot to tell you, is simply email homeguide@dekkerteam.com. homeguide@dekkerteam.com, and we will send you an electronic version of the home buying and selling made easy. Because it is, easy. It's simple. I should probably change this to made simple. Do you think that would be a better title? I'm thinking, because it's simple, not easy. There's so many pieces, and we want to make sure that you don't miss a piece. So having it in writing, and this is really a collaboration and a collection of the better part of 30 years of clients' journeys as to what works and how it works best. Home guide at dekkerteam.com. It's not an actual email address we've had for long because we just used to deliver this to people when they were actually in the process. And yet what we've recognized is when you want it is before you get there. It's when it's going to add the most value, and it really is all about adding value. So, Linda, we offer moving checklists, we offer details along the journey, but what's the one thing that you would say is most important for somebody when they're looking to buy a home? Not just their first home, their second home, their third home, their first home. What should they be thinking about?
It's different for every person. So it's effective communication so we can help you.
So allow your realtor in, I think is what Linda's saying.
Definitely. It's a process that you need a strong team working together to achieve that goal, and with effective communication and focus and proper goal setting, we'll get there together.
Because it allows us to create a strategy, a customized plan and strategy that's tailored specifically to you. I mean, I just had a client reach out the other day, and they'd been working with someone else for quite a long time, and their frustration was simply there was no plan, there was no strategy. There was no phone consultation, there was no sit down. It was just let's run out and let's start looking at houses, which can be fun and might be a little informative, and it's also a lot confusing. So having that ability to have a great conversation where you can lay it out makes it great. And then you're not going to second guess your decision making. Laying out the options.
There you go.
Yeah. And so if you want more details, if you have more questions, you do know how to reach us, I believe, but I am going to let you know again. Just give us a call, 613-860-4663. 860-4663, or general email is info@dekkerteam for just general inquiries. And then, of course, if you want to get a jump on education, or even if you're in the process now, home guide at dekkerteam.com, and we will send you your free, it won't cost you anything, guide to the whole home buying and selling made simple, because we're about to change it. So thank you, and know that no question is a bad question except the unasked